Hello, everyone. Sergio here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to have a new webinar. This time it's going to be about adjusting difficulty in the different ways to go to create a speakable activity, whether it fits for different age students, different level students, different proficiency levels, or simply if you want to challenge your students more or less. We're going to focus on some of the ways we can do that in a speakable activity. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Remember that you can participate in this as well. If you have any specific questions, let me know. We have audience on StreamYard, YouTube, and Twitter. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. There's a comment section. Everything is like integrated, so I will see like if you write a question in one system, I will see it in on StreamYard, which is compiling everything for us. Okay, so yep, welcome everyone. Let me actually start like setting this up. Okay. So, okay, welcome everyone. Officially, we're going to focus today on difficulty settings and how we can tweak this in a speakable activity. So, of course, a lot of this will be spent in the activity builder. So we're going to focus mostly on the builder today and the different cards, particularly repeat and respond, and different ways to adjust difficulty there. So, okay, let's begin by creating an activity. Just like always, you have the option of creating with AI, import vocab list, and start from scratch. And today we're going to start from scratch to focus on the specifics. So once again, difficulty settings, and on Speakable, let's add a cover. In this case, let's add a chameleon again. Why not? Because Chatty is our mascot. So let's include a funny looking chameleon. Okay, cool. Now, just as a little summary, we have 4 major content types when it comes to a speakable activity. It's going to be respond, repeat, multiple choice, and media page. These 2 are assistance in the creation of an activity. We're going to focus mainly on these 2. Well, multiple choice is just a multiple choice question, right? So of course the difficulty of this will depend entirely on you. So whatever question you ask here, you add the options, single select or multi-select, and shuffle if you want to use this in a classroom setting. But other than that, let's say there isn't much the AI needs to do. So we're not going to focus on multiple choice. Neither will we when it comes to the media page. The media page is, of course, a place to add videos, textbook information, references. So there's nothing for the students really to do here. So there's no difficulty associated with the media page per se. However, there is with repeat and respond. So let's begin with the repeat function. Again, if you haven't used Speakable in the past, the repeat function will allow you to write something here or say it yourself with the record pronunciation thing, and your students will be able to say it. So this is, I think I said it to English. I don't remember. Yes, English. So let's stick to English, and it can be something like I can write something. The dog is good, right? The dog is good, and that's going to be my sentence. The students will play it.
The dog is good.
I can verify because no one has used it before. The dog is good. Okay, so now it has been verified. It works. Okay, cool. By the way, you don't have to verify it. This is just if you want to make sure that everything will work. You can try it yourself. But if you see the unverified, you can assign it and it will work. It's just that this text is there in case you have like there's a sign of alarm if something will not work with the voice recognition systems. More on that in a second. But anyway, so there isn't, let's say, much difficulty here, or is there, right? Of course, a lot of the difficulty will depend on how difficult the phrase that needs to be repeated is, right? If I say something like, she sells seashells by the seashore, right? So immediately to start, this is going to be a more difficult thing to repeat. But as you can see, someone has used it before. It has been verified. So let's just test it. Sells seashells by the seashore. Cool. It looks like I know my tongue twisters. Anyway, so of course, the difficulty of what you write here is going to be important. And that's going to take us neatly to the first, I guess, major complication. And that is, there are some languages that are more difficult for voice recognition systems to detect. So what will make, or what is in an inherently more difficult language to deal with in a repeat activity comes to, like, for example, two languages come to mind. French, on the one hand, because French has many homophones, right? For conjugations of verbs, there are multiple conjugations, but half of them have the same rough phonetics to it, right? So if that's the case, then writing only like one conjugation here without anything else uh, will be like, okay, is it when the student says this, is it going to be the first person? Is it going to be the third person? Is it going to be the informal second person? So it's going, like, all of these have like the same sound. So like the first difficulty is, okay, some languages have lots of homophones. In the case of English, you will find this when I say this C, right? It's actually not recommended for use. And the reason is, well, sea is, it could be the sea, like I have a view of the ocean, right, of the sea, or it's like the verb to see. So in those cases where you have lots of homophones, like in French, or in these words in English and Spanish, that happens a lot, add context. So one way to ensure success or to maximize success is to include context. So instead of using just C, I can write like C is for coconut, right? And now, because the rest of the sentence is here, I can guarantee that this will work. Like, C is for coconut. Now it will know when it hears C, it will know that it's not the C, right? So I guess that's the first thing I would like to mention in terms of difficulty settings is make sure that there is enough context here for the voice recognition system to be accurate. Another language that makes things a little bit more difficult is, for example, a language like Mandarin, because Mandarin is a tonal language. So to start, like, it's going to be like the differences between one sound like ma, which are horse, mother, and I don't remember the other ones respectively. They're going to be difficult for the voice recognition um, to detect. So again, if you're teaching Mandarin, make sure that there is enough context so that the system knows that the ma you want to include is mother and not horse, or vice versa, right? Because again, both sound very similar. All right. Something else you could do is add a translation, right? So I mean, this also depends on the way you approach language teaching. Some teachers like myself, tend not to rely on translation, but on the direct method. So I'd rather add media in this rather than a translation. But if you want translation, just click the language you want in it, and that will be displayed for your students in this little chatty icon. Same thing is true if I want to add an explanation. So if you want to add other information that's going to be useful, you can add it here. And just like before, it's going to show up in the chatty icon in the lower left corner. As I mentioned, I tend not to use translation, so I prefer to use media for this. So C is for coconut. Let's use this one. And I just prefer to use context for this. But of course, if you use translation in your work, in your teaching, then by all means you can add both, right? And the explanation as well. So you can have three things that influence setting. Like you give the students more context for what it is. However, if you keep tweaking the settings, there are more things we can do. For example, we can increase the amount of times the students are requested to repeat, either card by card or in general in the entire activity. To change the general settings, we go here on the left, settings, and specifically to the repeat settings. And here I can change the default voice. So I can change it to Sally, for example, which sometimes might be more difficult or easier for your students. So these voices will represent a challenge. For example, if your students are used to listening to US English accents, then why not mix it up and have Emma British English, add some spice in here. So you can do this in many languages, and this is another way you can tweak difficulty. But anyway, going back to the repeat, you can set the amount of times that the activity needs to be repeated by default for the entire activity, not just one question in here. And finally, this is the main difficulty setting for repeat cards, leniency. So how strict do you want the repeat to be? So by default, this is going to be in normal, but if you have students who are true beginners, they're still getting the hang of the new sounds, like you feel that they might not be super successful, you would simply want to reduce on some frustration, then set it to very lenient, right? And that will be a little bit easier for your students. Again, this is something where some languages are let's say, more susceptible to being affected by this than others. Again, French comes to mind, and the other side, like the sounds in Spanish are so, I guess, easily, they're so distinct that you don't need to play around with the leniency too much. If anything, no leniency would be your best friend teaching a language that has such direct phonetics like Spanish does. A language like German also will do well with no leniency. A language like English would do well with a normal, and a French with very lenient. Again, but it's always good to try first to see where your students are, to see how well the system is really picking up what they're saying and if it is accurate, right? So this is another way you can adjust the difficulty of a repeat card. And the way it works is like this will like the student's voice is going to be transcribed rather into text, and this is the text that you will see hover when I test the activity. So when I say C is for capybara, right, it's not correct, but it still listened to me. That's why you can see the transcript being generated here. So of course this is not correct. So what I can do is I can reset everything. Yep, and try again. C is for coconut. There you go. Now the success rate went down very dramatically, because of course I failed constantly in front of the microphone. So this is one way you can check how difficult an activity is. For example, let me go back oops, I stopped sharing accidentally. 1 second. I clicked on the wrong button. Okay, so instead, I'm going to go back to this activity, but let me show you what that would look like how difficult are your students finding this? Okay, you can go to the classroom, and say go to this activity, which my students have finished, and I can go. I'm going to see how difficult Andrew found this activity. So first, you see easy here. Okay, this comes from the amount of attempts necessary. So he got 12 correct out of 16 total attempts, right? That's a 75%, let's say, success rate. And you can see exactly which questions were more difficult, right? So for example, this one attempt, easy, one attempt, easy. I did one attempt, easy, okay, this one my student found a little bit more complicated. I can find the same thing in a different student where, take a look at this. It took him 6 attempts to get this repeat right. So this is already a good way. Okay, what is it that my student is doing wrong, right? I can check that is it a specific word, or is it a conjugation? Is it a grammar thing? Like there's something that's throwing my students off. So to begin with, you have like a quick way to see if your students are doing well or not. And just with the attempts, right? So I can see 3 attempts for this one attempt for this one, 2 attempts for the last one there. I can check this one by one. I can also check the student by student, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so that's what like the way it works with repeat cards. Let me go back to the library, to the activity that we were creating together. And here we have it, difficulty settings. Let's keep editing it. Okay. So that is the repeat card and how you can tweak the difficulty there. But let's move on to the most important one, I think, and that is the response card. So the response card works by you ask a question or a prompt, and the students will answer freely. For example, how are you? Right? So of course, here, like the biggest tip I can give you here is the more complex the prompt, the more complex the student's answer is expected to be. So in this case, how are you? I can get away with a very short answer. So this, of course, is a very good question for a beginner. I can go like, I'm good. What about you? Right? And I can save my answer. And something like this would, I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. And yeah, your response is clear, concise, and directly answers the teacher's prompt. Although you included an additional question, it shows engagement and dialogue. Keep up the good work. So I can see like what the system found like to be particularly good. If I click on the suggested response, I do feel there's
Well,
an improvement there. And there's, of course, I chose to use the adjective, not the adverb, when the adverb will be better. But anyway, so that is like the first tip. The more complex your question or prompt, the more complex the answer. So let me see. I'm going to ask a more complex question, and I'm going to show you how that influences difficulty. So what are the reasons why, or no, let's see, what are the main economic activities in Peru, right? So, okay, this is a more complicated question now. So I'm going to try to make 0 mistakes, but I'm going to try to also get away with, a very simple answer to show you that even if my grammar is perfect, this type of question will require more depth. So by default, like this prompt will already be more difficult. So let's try. The main economic activities are mining and tourism. Okay, very short answer, but grammatically perfect. So what will this be? Okay, grammatically perfect. It was very important in this one. Let's go back and see and keep tweaking it up until to see when we fail. The main economics in Peru, and mention some examples, right? But I'm still going to wait. Mention. My punctuation isn't the best. Mention. There you go. Mention some examples. Okay, so I'm going to try to get away with the same answer. The main economic. I'm going to try again. The main economic activity of Peru is mining and tourism. Okay, so let's see if this was considered good enough. And okay, so it's the same answer. It was okay the first time, but this time it was not okay. Why? Because the prompt specifically asks for more details and examples of the main economic activities, right? Even if my answer was grammatically perfect, the difficulty setting was higher, right? Simply because my prompt was already more complicated. But okay, I hear you say, I want to have a more complex prompt, but I would still want this to be more forgiving. So there are several ways you can do this. So number one is you can go to auto grading and define what the perfect score would be. So right now we're using pass or fail grading system, which will simply compare the student's response with the prompt and with this sentence here. So the sentence is, the student's response is clear and concise and answers the teacher's prompt. Grammar errors aren't sufficient to detract from the overall meaning of the response. So this is like, if the student's answer fits this description, then it is going to be considered a pass. If it doesn't, then it's going to be considered a fail. However, you can define how lenient you want this to be. For example, I can determine students are beginners, so grammar errors aren't a big issue, right? So you can use wording like that. Just tell, hey, my students are beginners, so like make it easier. Like this is okay. And this is like your students' that answer is going to be compared with this. And because you added this last section, what would have been a fail without tweaking anything will be considered a pass this time, because you mentioned specifically that grammar errors aren't a big issue. If you want to do the opposite, if you want to ask a very simple prompt, but you want to focus on higher difficulty, then do the opposite. Like you can tweak this to grammar errors aren't sufficient. No, you can even determine like the student's answer contains no mistakes whatsoever, right? And now it's going to look for relevance and clarity, of course, but it's also going to look for a perfect score grammatically. So if you want to increase the difficulty, you can, let's say, play around between the prompt and the like, let's say, the definition for the auto grading, and that will be a way to do it. This is, of course, a feature that's available for Teacher Pro users. If you are a basic Teacher Basic plan, then you're going to be grading this anyways. So let's say there's no need to play around with the prompt and the auto grading, because you will be doing the grading anyways. But if you're a Teacher Pro and you like to define the like what makes a good answer or what makes a bad answer, then you can define it here with the with this text in the auto grading tab. However, if you are an organization level user, then you can increase the difficulty by not increase the difficulty, but change how tunable the difficulty is by changing this from pass fail to rubric based. So rubric-based will stop grading the student's answer based on a 1 or a 0, like a pass or a fail. But now it will be an entire range of numbers and an entire scale that you can define. And you can define in several aspects at the same time. So this is the rubric that is selected by default. But in order to tweak it or just simply understand what it is, I can click on it and I can see what defines the student's scores. In this case, we have 3 fields: grammar, relevance, and completeness. This is, by the way, the standard one. And I can see what the definitions for every score are. So beginner, 0 points, contains multiple grammatical errors that significantly impede understanding. Intermediate contains a few grammatical errors that minimally affect understanding. And advanced, grammatically correct or contains minor errors that do not affect understanding. Okay, but what if 1, 0, or 2 is still too few? Right? You can add more, right? So I can add another one called advanced plus, right? And you can define it. And it is like, there are no mistakes in the student's response, right? So you can keep defining it. You can add more for relevant, like instead of only covering all aspects with no irrelevant details, like multiple details are mentioned for relevance. Completeness, the sentence is every single sentence has multiple clauses. You can define this the way you want, but still, this is the standard one. You can tweak it even further. For example, what if you want to do the opposite? What if you want to ask a more complicated prompt, right? but your students, you know that your students will make lots of mistakes because they are in a level where they will do that, right? So what if you want to make a rubric more forgiving? Well, you can do the same thing, not by removing levels, but by removing criteria altogether. For example, I want to create a space that focuses on my or that allows my students to focus on fluency, talk, without the fear of a grammar correction to, shoot them down or something. I can completely remove grammar from the equation. So now only relevance and completeness are going to be taken into account. And even if the student makes grammar mistakes, like those are not going to be influential in the student's score. So a student can have many mistakes in the answer, but they can still get the 4 points. Why? Because grammar isn't a field that I am looking for. I'm only focusing on relevance and completeness, right? But again, what if you want more from the rubric? Well, this is just a standard one. If you click on the library, on the book icon here, you will open the library of rubrics. Everything that's labeled pink is there like by default, like anyone can use it. And everything that is in this indigo color, I created. So let's focus on the standard one. So we have a standard one without the addition or without the omission actually that we edited in. We have Speakable prompt evaluation rubric, AP exam email section, WIDA speaking rubric. And take a look at this one. WIDA speaking rubric will already give me like lots of different levels to evaluate. So it's not like 0, 1, or 2. It's actually 1, 2, 3, all the way to 6 for each of the 3 categories for a total of 18 points. So if you want to favor this type of rubric, then of course you have many points to compare your students to, and this can be like a good reference point. So I would use a rubric like this to begin and to finish, to see where they began and to see where they finished the level with you, right? So this is a good way of adjusting to, like using the same rubric independent of how proficient they are, but it's to see how proficient they are. But again, you can create rubrics that are specific. For example, this one is not particularly beginner, not particularly advanced. This is one right in the middle. Why? I was teaching passive voice to my students. So I wanted to create a rubric that specifically targeted this. So it evaluates passive voice usage, clarity and coherence, and grammar and vocabulary. So this is not just about like tweaking difficulty, but zooming in on something specific that you want your students to do, or if you want to focus on something specific. You can create rubrics for everything. For example, here I have one that will evaluate not only the vocabulary that they use, but how creative the stories are. So short story evaluation. If you teach French, I have one that's specific about passé composé. So if you want to create a rubric that is going to zoom in and it's going to, if you want, ignore other aspects of the speech in favor of evaluating something else, to have a very specific objective when grading, then rubrics are your best friend. If you don't want to be specific, but you want to focus on general proficiency, then you can use this. This one is one that measures fluency, for example. But I have one here that I wanted to show you, which is this one. Yeah. If you would like to have an estimation of where your student is according to the CEFR proficiency scale, then you can add one like this. This one I created, but I think I can make this available for everyone, so that everyone has like a good metric, or a repeatable metric to which the students are evaluated, right? And in order to create a rubric, you can do it here. So I think I have shown you lots of advanced rubrics. Let me give you an example of what makes a forgiving rubric for a beginner. So I can tell the AI what I want. I need a rubric to be very lenient because my students are beginners. I want the following criteria to be evaluated. Vocabulary, correct word order, and pronunciation accuracy, right? So I can define it like this. You can add or remove details if you want. And the rubric will be created for you, and that will, like, you can still tweak it after it's generated. So you can ask it to add levels, to add criteria. In this case, it is a total of 6 points, with a total of 2 points for each one of the categories. Let me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, so we are yes. So this is the one that it gave me, but I can keep adding rubrics, right? I keep adding criteria or levels of uh, difficulty, I guess, or proficiency levels to which the students are going to be compared to. So anyway, when you're happy with the rubric, you can apply to this card, apply to our cards, or set as your default. And any rubrics that you create are going to be available in the library. So you can use them again, or you can have them like open them again and edit them if you feel like tweaking them a little bit more. Another thing that is important when talking about difficulty is here, like if you are teaching English, it will be like the WIDA level. And if you're teaching other languages, it's going to be the ACTFL level. And what it does is it will give your students an assessment of where they are in according to that ACTFL or WIDA scale. So that's another way you can, I guess, start, like it would be a good idea to start your activities or the school year with activities that have this on, so that you know where they are. Or, like if you know where your student is according to WIDA or ACTFL, then you can adapt accordingly and create the subsequent activities, more lenient or more challenging, depending on what that student needs. So that's another way you can tweak difficulty. Now, if you want to add context, this is something that you can do as well. You can so far, like in this case, the media was there just to give the students an image, to use just some context. But if you want it to be a core part of the prompt, then you can add a picture. Like I'm going to add this one. And you can ask a question about it, like what animals can be seen in the picture? Oh my God, seen in the picture, right? And you can click on AI context and generate, and it will merge these two. So this is also very good if you want to use focus on your students' ability to describe images, reading comprehension, video, listening comprehension, because you can also add videos. So that's a good way to, add difficulty or remove it. However, like if you hover over your mouse over here, you will see that the definition created by Speakable is very detailed. Like the image features a vibrant and playful illustration of various cartoon animals, all gathered around a wooden sign that reads zoo. At the top, there's a cheerful giraffe peeking over the other animals, blah, blah. There's a lot of information. So if you add this, right, and then you ask what animals can be seen in the picture, it can be very strict. So it might be good to add a rubric like this one to, let's say, make things a little bit easier for your students. Because what if you miss an animal, right? It might, for example, I don't know, the students might miss on this ostrich here. Then it might be enough to give them a failing score, right? So a rubric like the one we just added is a good way of making the activity a little bit easier. So rubrics are good for advanced levels, but in this case, also for beginner levels, if you want to really hone down on a specific aspect. So for example, let me just try this out with this rubric, and I will show you what this would look like. Do I have this on? Yes, read level is turned on. So yeah, in the picture, I can see an elephant, a giraffe, a toucan, a lion, a monkey, an ostrich, a pink hippo, and a zebra, all over a sign that says zoo. Okay, so let's see if my answer is good enough, let's say, for this type of rubric. And because we set it up as a beginner, I expect yes, take a look at this. Pronunciation accuracy was as the response is written. Never mind, I cannot test this one. But take a look at this. Nostrich. Okay, maybe my pronunciation wasn't fantastic, and that's why. Okay, correct word order, but it's a small inconsistency with the phrase all over a sign that says zoo. all around a sign that says, okay, this is a good correction, vocabulary. So you can try this and experiment with the rubrics until you find one that fits the best. But again, you don't need a rubric for everything. You can simply use the auto grading pass fail system and try again. So, and because this will work for most situations as well. In the picture, I can see an elephant, a giraffe, a toucan, a lion, a hippo, a zebra, a monkey, and one ostrich. So let's see, by tweaking this from rubric to the simple pass fail, what changes. Okay, so I have a developing WIDA estimate, and let's see, there's no mention of an ostrich in the description. Focusing on the animal's explicit dimension description would strengthen your response. Okay, so in this case, it didn't. It didn't read the ostrich, but like you can still tweak the auto grading so that it is it fits the student's level. So for example, I can do something like contextual mistakes are forgivable, or something like that, so that even if your students are not super correct, the system is going to still give them a passing score if that's what you want, right? So those are some of the things that you can do to tweak the languages. I'm checking my notes here. Something else you can do for tweaking difficulty is to see what other teachers are doing. Like for example, like I know that this can be like sometimes it's like a trial and error thing to see if the rubrics are going to be good for this group or good for another, but maybe not for this one. You can also go to the library, to the Discover section, and you can see what other teachers are doing, and you can literally type in like intro, right, and see what other teachers are doing to like for introductions, like in this case, or for example advanced, right, and see what teachers are. There's nothing labeled advanced in this moment. Okay, maybe not in this language, but I have one that is advanced for grammar in German. Anyway, so you can type in what other teachers are doing. You can look for it and then use this as a model. But the final thing I wanted to show you to tweak difficulty settings in an activity is to use the AI builder. So instead of tweaking everything yourself by hand, you can click here on the AI creator, or here, create with AI, to open the interface with Chatty. And you can tell Chatty what you want, right? And I'm going to try to be as basic as I can so that Chatty creates the the activity for this specific group. So, hi Chatty, I need an activity for true beginners. These students are learning English. The activity should be about introducing myself and others. Please include 5 respond cards. So I'm being specific about the respond cards because, of course, multiple choice, I'm not sure it would be the best practice in this case for if I want my students to learn how to introduce themselves. I could add some repeat cards, but in this case, I'm specific. I want 5 respond cards. And because I mentioned that this is for true beginners learning English, then I expect everything to be set up to begin with in a very basic way. If the prompt is too vague, right? If Chatty needs more information, Chatty is going to ask you. For example, great, let's clarify a few details and ensure the activity meets your needs. Do you want the focus to be on basic self-introduction? My name is, or also introducing others? Any specific vocabulary? Okay, nothing specific. No multiple choice questions. Okay. So 1. I need my students to introduce themselves, but also other people like their family. This would be the best context for this activity. And 2, I'm just going to add this. I can ignore the other part. I don't need multiple choice questions at the moment. I only want the response cards. Still, Chatty may make some decisions for you. Like if you were too vague, Chatty may add some vocabulary. You can still tweak it later, right? So you can take what Chatty created for you and adapt it to your needs if this was not too clear. Or you can tell Chatty to proceed. And you can tell Chatty to, for example, in this case, Chatty made the decision of adding some repeat cards and multiple choice. I'm going to say proceed. Okay, that's fine. I can still decide not to add them or to change them later on. So let's see how well Chatty did this for me. So instead of doing this myself, I told Chatty to do it for me. So, for example, hello, my name is, yes, I'm going to add this one. I am this years old. I'm going to add this one. But you know what? I'm going to click with images so that it focus also on the images. So add, and take a look at this here. It's going to add the next image. Oh, I am from a specific place. This is my mother. This is my father. Or again, I can add all of them at once, right? I'm going to specify, you know what? I'm just going to click on, say, introduce yourself, say where you're born, tell us how old you are, and that's it. And those are the ones I'm going to use. So say where you are from, introduce yourself in English. Please use phrases like, hello, my name is, tell us how old you are. And it's an interesting picture that was chosen there. But anyway, you can you can let Chatty make this decisions for you. And of course, since this is a very easy question, you can get away with a very easy answer. I am 35 years old. That's it, and because everything was set up for beginners, this is clearly lenient enough so that it doesn't request for lots of detail or to elaborate. Like, this already comes in pre-packaged, I'm going to say, for beginners. I can do the same thing in the other way around. Like, I can go back to the Chatty and tell, thank you, I now need 5 respond cards for AP students English about about comparing and contrasting different cultures. So, okay, Chatty did this for beginners, but now can Chatty do this for advanced learners? And the answer is yes. And let me again go back with images, add them all, and see what it did. So compare the traditional family structure in your culture with that of another culture you are familiar with. Okay, cool. That's more AP, right? Contrast the typical daily routines of teenagers in your country with those in another country. Cool. Compare the educational system in your country with that of another country. So it took what I prompted and or I prompted Chatty to do, and it created an activity for me with the specificity that I wanted, right? So contrast the ways celebrations such as weddings or birthdays are conducted in your culture with another culture that you know about. And some images were selected for each. Anyway, so like, this is another way we can tweak difficulty simply by allowing Chatty or AI to make that decision for us. And this is what I would recommend to do first. This is a feature that's available for everyone, regardless of the plan that you have. So if it's Organization Pro or Basic, everyone has access to the AI creator. So feel free to play around with it and see how Chatty can help you adapt the activities to different difficulties, different audiences, different strictness levels, or something like that. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to focus on. You can always use a speakable activity to see if indeed it's being super strict or not. Like, for example, I can go to a classroom and see what the students have been responding, right? So I can go to this class, and I can see what the students have responded, if they have had success, if they have needed many attempts to finish a question. For example, I can see the answer here to see what the score was, what the feedback was. I can do all of this to gauge my students' proficiency, and to gauge if my speakable activities are fit for their levels, right? As you can see, probably in this one, everybody has found it easy. Very few attempts to do everything. This one hasn't done it. So I can check this, and okay, I can already make decisions. Like, probably this activity is kind of easy, so I'm going to step it up for the next one. So you can use your first activity to to learn how strict or lenient to make the next speakable activity for that classroom. So yeah, you can see the progress over some time as well with the analytics. Like for example, you can see a specific student and how well they have been performing, and you can plot this out in a report. So for example, this particular student has found these activities to, this one is difficult, for example. This one was easy, another difficult one, and 120 words spoken, success rate of 83%. So these quick metrics will allow you to, create the next activities, in a way that makes some sense regarding, like in a way to challenge them proportionately. Right. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. Let's go back to StreamYard here. Let me know if you have any questions. I know that we have some teachers in the audience here. Let me know if you have tried some of these. If you have any questions that maybe are different about a different topic, I am all ears, or eyes in this case, because I can read your comments. In the meantime, while the teachers write their questions, let me remind you that we're going to have more webinars in this week. So tomorrow we're going to focus more into, let me see the list. Yes, so we have one tomorrow that's for instant feedback. So we're going to learn, let's say, the different ways we can, or the way instant feedback works in an activity, in the different settings that we have available. And on Thursday, we're going to have another one that's for comprehension. This is not going to be the first time we do the one on Thursday about listening and reading comprehension activities on Speakable. So if you missed the first one, then feel free to join this one. We're going to be repeating some of the greatest hits, if you will, in the following weeks as well. For example, we're going to focus again on the AI creator in detail, on ACTFL and WIDA estimates, and fluency activities as well. So keep your eyes peeled, because we're going to be continuing this series of webinars every afternoon, at least Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Friday, probably not, because, well, we don't have, we are not in a rush, let's say, so we can focus on the first 4 days of the week for these webinars. Anyway, so that's all I have to you today. I see no questions for now in the comment section, but still, if you have any questions, or if you want to use this in your school, school-wide or district-wide, because you haven't made the decision, well, then maybe try it out to see if this is indeed the tool for you. Pilot will be, of course, for the organization plan. The organization plan is the one that has everything. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions about this. If you are interested in this, but you missed this webinar, then this is our website. You can contact us there. And so yeah, plugs, webinars this week. Let us know if you would like to try a pilot. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for your attendance and participation, and have a lovely rest of the evening. Have a good one. Bye.